With the sun shining in many parts of the country, it's easy to forget that for many, we've just come out of one of the hardest winters in living memory. After energy bills skyrocketed and the country was gripped by a deepening cost of living crisis, everyone felt the pinch. But for the 2 million British pensioners living in poverty, largely kept out of sight by frailty and illness, it was a real ordeal. Channel 4's dispatches spoke to some of them over the winter, and it makes for pretty difficult viewing. We'll start with 76-year-old John, who lives in Sunderland. He lives alone in the house he shared with his family, including his parents, brother and sister. All of them have died. He visits their graves daily, though. This is what his winter was like.
In the old days, you just put your heating on and you forget about it. You know, I'd be worried about the cost all the time. There's my fridge, switched off. I've cleaned it out, look, spotless. My sister used to drink bottles of Coke like that, see? That's the last phone she ever had. Look. And I can't part with it. That fridge has not been on since there's all this electricity's gone up and the cost of living. I haven't had that on. I've stopped eating the yoghurts and the bottle of milk, what I used to have in the fridge, I put it on the back step to keep it cold. Because it is electricity, isn't it? It's sky high, isn't it? I'll just be paying standing charges because I'm not using any electricity or anything. These lights is never on the night. I'll just tough it out. That's just the way I am. There, it comes straight on. These bottles, colour gas bottles, they've gone up about £10 since last year. I see that if you use it like one bar, like I'm using it now, it usually lasts us 4 weeks. Well, I'm into the 5th week now. So there can't be much left.
Next we can hear from Doreen. She lives in a tower block flat just a few miles away. She's 68. She's only had 2 visitors in 38 years.
I have it on about 3 hours, my heating. I try to keep it off as long as possible because of the cost. And I mean, this room is a big room to heat. And you lose a bit of heat through the door and all. That door's not very heat-proof. You can feel the draft. You stand on the carpet and you can feel the draft. It doesn't help at all, no. You're putting the heat on for the birds. You haven't got it for free. If I had it for free, I'd have it on all day. But you've got to pay for it. And the money's got to come from somewhere. Otherwise, if you don't pay, they come and cut you off. That's what they do. I do go to bed early. I go to bed about 8 o'clock, sometimes 7:30. Just get warm that way. Listen to me radio, company, getting no visitors, better than sitting up and being a bit cold and watching TV or a DVD. At the moment, like, you know, yeah, it's more comfortable in bed with a bottle. Lovely. I could do it now.
Final clip we'll show you is Harry and Christine. They're from rural Leicestershire and have been married for 59 years. He's 83 and she's 77. They got through the winter together, but only by cutting their meals.
I can't imagine life without him. I mean, I'm continually worried about him, about his health, because I don't think we're keeping warm enough. We don't have the heating on all day like we should do.
I should have the heating on all day, I should, because I've got a minor heart condition, leaking valves. And they recommended that you should keep the temperature at least 19, 15 and 12. It's got both, so it's in between.
It's a very difficult bungalow to heat.
It's on a concrete platform.
And we've got metal frames in every door frame is metal, and that doesn't help.
It takes about a third more than a normal bungalow to heat. So you've got to cut costs somewhere.
Because of the cost of living, I don't bake anymore. I don't cook as healthy meals as I used to cook, I don't think.
Used to love Christine's food. She was a very good cook. We used to have roast 3 times a week.
And I miss cooking. I used to love cooking. I always cooked a Sunday joint, didn't I?
Yeah.
I've always have done right through my married life. Don't do that anymore because it's too expensive. Electricity prices is just horrendous.
Thank you, my dear.
Shut in your bed, please. Bed. Why should energy companies be making all this horrendous profits for their shareholders when the ordinary people are suffering? It's not right. There's something wrong somewhere.
So that was just a taste of that documentary. It's made up almost entirely of those 4 people just talking about their lives. I do really recommend watching it. Not an easy watch, of course. When we talk about the politics of age on this show, I don't think unreasonably, sort of we often talk about property and how sort of voting is more sort of divided by age than it used to be. And that's a lot to do with the fact that across classes, in a way, older generations are more likely to own their own homes, and owning your own home means more to your financial security than it used to. But what I suppose gets mentioned less in political discourse is the 2 million pensioners who are living in poverty.
Yeah. WASPy women as well, Michael. And you're right to say, it will be a weird place politically if you start saying that WASPy women, people who've paid in tax for, decades, and then get hung out to dry by the political establishment. I mean, that stuff is just heartbreaking, Michael. The government has, the first job of government is to ensure, defense of the realm, rule of law. I feel like government, besides that, has really 3 jobs, 3 core jobs. Forget public service and all these other things, which obviously I believe in that. I think they should be socially owned. But core jobs, even if you're a free market capitalist: cheap food, cheap energy, cheap housing. And that's important whether or not it's people like that or businesses. Businesses need cheap energy. They need cheap housing because, otherwise they've got to pay their staff an arm and a leg because they can't meet their rent. And of course, cheap food, because it's really fundamental. You can go all the way back to the 1830s. We have, the Corn Laws are repealed because the ruling class, capitalist class, recognizes that the price of grain in this country was too high. We had to have imports to make it cheaper. They did that because they recognized they can pay workers less. But cheap food was core to their thinking. And yet we have food inflation of 20% per annum. We saw sky-high gas and electricity over the last year, and now we're being told by multiple agencies that actually energy prices will stay broadly where they are all the way through to the end of the decade. And of course, housing, I don't need to say anything about affordable housing. It simply doesn't exist in this country, whether you want to buy or you want to rent, particularly in larger cities where most of the jobs are. And this really just brings it home, Michael. And I think those key issues, like I say, housing, food, energy, doesn't matter how old you are affected by at least one of those. And it's really grim to see. And then fundamentally, to finish, if you're a young able-bodied person and yet it's cold, you can manage that for a winter or two. But at that age, in your 70s, 80s, with a health condition, that could be the thing that takes you away. And it is remarkable, frankly, that we've not had a real political overhead for this. We saw Liz Truss have to leave office because of a misjudged budget, ridiculous budget. We saw Boris Johnson have to go because of eating cake, but realistically because he broke lockdown rules. And yet for something like this, there hasn't really been any political consequences at all. And I find that deeply revealing about the state of our politics and our media too.